Are either one of you guys going to talk about balloons this
No.
week?
Are you?
No.
Okay, so we can talk about them here.
Are we missing an opportunity here?
So I saw a little clip of some Defense Department, looked like a general or admiral or something or other, guy with a lot of jewelry on his shoulders and chest. And he was saying, somebody said, why wasn't he referring to it as a balloon? And he said, I'm being very careful to not do that because we don't know exactly what it was. It's an object. We don't know what the propulsion system, if any, was on the object. And so,
It's a balloon. And they're just embarrassed.
And people on the radio are saying, like talk radio people are saying, what's wrong? Like we missed on the first shot of the one that was over Lake Huron. We actually it took us 2 shots to down it. Yeah. And I thought, wow, this is ingenious because our jets are probably all made to shoot down things that are moving fast. And if you want to invade the United States, don't do it with hypersonic missiles. Do it with things that float on the wind.
Yeah.
Here's what I don't understand. They said that they use missiles because if they use guns, it just riddles it with holes and it comes down slowly.
Mm-hmm. That's what.
And I'm thinking, don't we want to riddle it with holes and have it come down slowly? Isn't that like optimal?
Yeah. So you can see what it is without it being destroyed on landing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I suspect that these things are. I don't know whether they're new or not, but one thing I do know is that the high altitude jet stream favors China and Japan in this regard.
Yeah.
Because the Japanese launched, I think it was 3,800 incendiary balloons. They just tied them to balloons, launched them up, waited for them to get...
This is during World War II?
Yeah, and then I think they probably had a timer because I don't know how else they would know when to drop it. And these things would drop an incendiary charge. And as an interesting little piece of historical trivia, there are only 6 American servicemen who were listed as killed in action during wartime who died in the continental United States of America when that happened. Mm-hmm. And they were 6 guys that happened to be underneath one of these incendiary balloons that the Japanese sent over.
Wow. So they made it.
Yeah, they hit like Oregon.
Well, so they didn't do any significant damage, but that's the way the jet stream works. And I suppose the Chinese just thought, well, we'll just keep sending them until they do something about it. It always shot down a UFO and another UFO. And I'm thinking, well, my sister, bless her heart, said, do you think there's anything more to this? And I said, Melanie, if we're just going up and knocking these things just out of the sky, chances are they're not interstellar spacecraft from a civilization that's 5,000 years more advanced than us.
Back at the mothership, they're going, oh, you told me we wouldn't need
rockets?
any resistance.
I wish we
what?
thought of those.
An infrared what?
Why don't we have rockets?
That would actually be kind of cool. These humanoids appear to be aggressive and warlike. Yeah, get off my lawn, you miserable bastards. Hey, here's a fun fact on balloons. And whatever you do, this is very important that you do not try this at home under any circumstances.
We're trained professionals here.
Yeah, not you, and I mean people watching. So I'm going to give you a detailed set of instructions of things that you must never, ever, ever do, ever, because it's unbelievably cool. It's one of the coolest things I've ever seen, and that's why you should never, ever, ever do this on your own.
Should parents bring the children into the room at this point?
Parents probably should bring the children into the room so they realize how important it is that they don't do what I'm about to explain at home. So this is what happens when you grow up with engineers, and I was working at the Miami Planetarium when I was 13 or 14, and guys like Phil Trick and Doug Gagan, these guys are 10 years older than me and physics majors and so on. So they showed me how to make an actual hot air balloon, and here's what you need. Here's what you should never go buy to do this.
Correct.
Because
we knew what you meant.
Right. So parents, make sure that your children never go out and buy at the same time a dry cleaning bag, a box of plastic straws, a razor blade, Scotch tape, and a box of birthday candles.
Okay.
Now,
the kind with numbers on them, or just the little tiny sticks?
Just little candles,
sticky ones, I think.
Little candles.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So, and it has to be a dry cleaning bag. I thought, can we use like a garbage bag or something? He said, not a chance. Got to be a dry cleaning bag.
Can it be a 24-hour Martinizing bag?
I don't think so. I think it has to be a dry cleaning bag. Okay. So here's what you should never ever do. You take the dry cleaning bag, and if there's a hole in the top for where the hook goes through, seal the top. Just tape it up. Right. Put that aside. Then you take the straws and you kind of crink one end of a straw and stick it into the other end of the straw, so you've got something that's 2 straws long. Wrap that up with tape at the seams there, right? Then you do that twice, and you take the 2 sets of straws and you set them at right angles to each other, and you tape that up. So now you've got basically a
right angle balloon,
2-straw radius.
And this is going to be the frame for the base of the balloon, I'm guessing.
Getting ahead of me. So now you've got the stable kind of a cross, right? It's 2. Each arm is 2 combined straw lengths long. Then you take the razor blade and you go to the top of the straws. And you nick little X's there, tiny ones, little X's, probably 5 or 6 down a side, 5 or 6 down a side.
What do you mean the top of the straws? You mean you're laying it on the ground?
Lay it flat, right?
Okay.
Pick which side is up, doesn't matter. Lay it on the ground, and then on the top of those things you make, let's say 6 or whatever, tiny little. You just want to just put a little nick in it, right?
Well, I just want to make sure, for precision's sake, for the people not making this at home right now.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Right. Then you take the birthday candles and insert them into that tiny little slot there. So now you've got probably, let's say you have 6 on a side, so you got 24 candles that are sitting upright. We haven't lit anything yet. Then you take the dry. No, could ever, because this should never be done. Then you take the dry cleaning bag, and you don't have to inflate it, obviously, but you basically put it over there, and you tape the 4 corners of this cross thing to the bag. Right? With me so far?
Yeah.
So basically, it's open at the bottom, but it's got
open at the bottom.
Okay,
that's right. It's got this, and where each one of the 4 arms connects, whether it connects to the bag or not, you tape it to the bag on those 4 points, right?
Okay.
And make sure it's relatively secure. And then whatever you do, don't go outside at nighttime.
No.
And on a relatively windless night, don't go outside at nighttime and light all of those candles.
In your tightly packed HOA development community.
Precisely. Because if you do, this thing will just inflate and it will just keep going. It will not stop.
Can you promise it'll be shot down by the U.S.
Terminator
military?
balloons.
I can't promise it will be, but I can promise you it'll be worth the effort. It was the coolest thing I ever saw, which is why you should never, ever, ever do this at home, kids. Now, it's important to say that I did this in Miami, where it rains every 20 minutes. If I did it, I wouldn't, dead seriously now, I wouldn't do it in California, not in L.A. anyway.
I wouldn't do
Maybe
it
out
here
in the desert
either.
someplace.
My neighborhood's made of
because
kindling.
there's a
half the
genuine
state
fire
would
risk.
burn.
Yeah. But out in the desert or something like that, so that's actually serious, right? But
that could be a lot of fun.
We would launch these things, and we just watch them go, and then one got blown a little in the direction we weren't planning on, and then it's
True story. I used to go to some...
Hang on, I'm not finished.
Sorry.
Finished. No. I'm not finished. I just remembered the details. We had so much fun. I pity these poor kids today. So we're on the roof of the Museum of Science in Miami and at the Southern Cross Observatory, and we see this balloon starting to drift over to US 1, which is just the museum bordered US 1, relatively, 3 lanes in each direction, relatively busy road. And oh crap, that's not good. It's heading over US 1. And then the bag caught fire. And these raining globs of plastic came down on somebody's hood.
Oh, no.
And we were terrified. We closed the observatory, went inside, started opening books. I was just here studying my Bible.
You got to get inside.
Right.
Yeah.
I
feel like we should be interrupted by a commercial from an attorney that said, "Have you ever been driving down the highway and suddenly globs of plastic rain down on the hood of your car?"
Flaming plastic rain down from the sky over. If so, you want to call the law firm of Parker and Larry H. Parker. I'll fight for you. Anyway, that's our balloon segment for Right Angle.
No,
actually, I have an addition.
More.
I have an addition. I used to, on occasion when I was a kid, get dragged to balloon races out of Forest Park in St. Louis. It was still a big deal then, and maybe it still is. It was really cool. You didn't really see much other than people, and then taking off and floating away. We never saw the end of these things. But this was a family thing because my great grandfather, who I never got to meet, he died pretty young in the 40s. He and his family were actual balloon racing people, and he almost drowned in a hot air balloon. Not in a crash, in a river or something, but he was a kid, and they're caught in a storm ballooning, and the basket fills up, and he's little. And I don't know if it's still there, but at the baggage pickup area at Lambert Field, the airport in St. Louis, they have this long mural of the history of air flight in St. Louis. St. Louis was and still is a big aeronautics town. And one of the first sections on that mural was or is my great-grandfather almost drowning in a hot air balloon.
For those of you at home who are wondering how you can possibly race balloons, turns out you can.
Yeah.
Once the balloon goes up into the air, it's going to be subject to the prevailing winds, but the wind strength is a gradient. It's going to be different miles per hour at different altitudes, generally going in the same direction. You go high enough, it'll change direction. So basically, balloon racing is the ability to just by the seat of your pants figure out what altitude is moving the fastest in the direction you're racing a guy with.
And adjust your inflation accordingly by controlling the heat.
My guess is that the seat
balloon.
of your pants device these days costs roughly $7,000 and connects to the...
no, it's $700,000. That's just to study the problem. It's gyro stabilized,
Yes.
pressure sensitive.
That's like saying you go
taking all the
bass
fun
fishing
out
by
of it.
putting your boat in the water and getting a rod with a hook on it. Nah, it's not how it is anymore.
Yeah, people would say, when I was taking flying lessons, they'd say you just use the Mark I eyeball on that one. That's what instrument do you use? Just use the Mark I eyeball. Anyway, for our members who are watching this is a members only show. I hate to do this, but I'm going to take what we're doing right now and chop it out because we have to have a balloon segment. Must have balloon segment. Cannot talk about.
Sadly.
Cannot put it.
Sadly.
So
But
while the rest of the show is for our members only, we're going to take this little bit out and make it available for the public. So you can realize how much fun you're not having by not being a member at BillWhittle.com.
So let me just say this, though, about the balloons. I must have seen too many Tom Cruise movies because, to my way of thinking, if there's a balloon over the United States, then some big plane with like a cow catcher on the front of it flies by and just scoops it out of the air and then and then takes it down. I'm like, why do we have to shoot it down? Can't we just snag it? I mean, they've been doing that in the movies since the 1930s.
Yeah.
Well, the first generation of American spy satellites, the Corona program, we had good enough lenses and we had good enough camera and we had good enough film, but we didn't have good enough digital. We had no digital technology.
No
Television image coming back didn't look like it's taken through a pinhole. So what they had to do on the first generation of satellites was they had to eject the film canister. This thing would re-enter the atmosphere, pop a parachute, and then some kind of plane, probably a C-130 or something like that, had like whiskers in the front, just these wide wires, and this thing would fly right through the parachute shrouds, drag this thing along,
that's awesome,
and then land.
And then they get down and they take it to Thrift Drugs and they put it in a little envelope and they mail it off, and then 2 weeks later it comes back.
They get the film back. Scott, I don't know how this happened, but you said too many Tom Cruise movies. Now keep in mind, there's no audio in the room. I hear you all through the little thing in my ear. You said too many Tom Cruise movies, and from downstairs where she's working on the sofa, my wife hollers up, "Shut your mouth!"
There's no such thing. Here's our last little balloon story from talking about older technology.
Melissa.
I forget the name. I want to say maybe it's the Hellerman or the Hiller Rescue System. It's something like that. So before helicopters became a thing, they had a problem with how they're going to get down pilots out of behind enemy lines. You get shot down behind enemy lines. This is mostly after, in fact, I'm quite sure this is completely after World War II. So in the early years of the Cold War, before we had, helicopters going in to get guys out, we had guys, pilots behind the line, and what the hell are you going to do? How are you going to get these guys out? So this Air Force guy rigged something that's actually pretty simple. It would fit like in it's a decent sized package, but basically all it is it's a harness that you put on. It's got a gas canister, would have to be helium, I guess, and it's got a relatively small balloon and a long cable, right? So you're down behind enemy lines, you put the harness on, you pop this thing, the balloon goes up. The balloon is never, ever intended to lift you off the ground. It's just designed to go up a couple hundred feet. And once that thing was up, an aircraft would come along and you would sit like this facing away from if the plane's coming this way, you're facing away, you'd sit like this, and the plane would grab the top of the balloon and then the rope would pull you off the ground.
Holy cow.
And they tested it a bunch of times, and it worked a bunch of times. And my primary instructor in helicopters was a former Vietnam pilot. He told me, he said, He said they saw, but he said they saw test footage of this once. The guy's sitting there on the ground, like, and a close up, and the thing catches him and pulls him, and he says to me, "Bill, there were vortices coming off of his toes." He thought that was the funniest thing in the world.
I think this is
too.
The existence of that system is what accelerated the development of the helicopter.
Just waiting there like this, never knowing when the sudden tug is going to come that is strong enough to pop you up into the sky.
Certainly there was elastic. I don't think it was like a bungee thing, but there's certainly enough elastic.
It wasn't. Yeah, to rip you in half. Yeah, not literally.
And here's the sickest, craziest, nuttiest part of it all. Like I said, they tested it a bunch of times. There may have been one fatality. I think they probably tested 6-7 times or something. But I always wanted to do that, and I still do. If I had an opportunity to use that, I think they called it Skyhook, but it actually had a name like the Hiller or something.
Skyhook is what they called it in the Batman movie.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I'd love to do that. I think that'd be a blast.
It would be a great amusement park ride.
I have just started a crowdfunding campaign to make that happen, Bill.
Okay, all right.
Don't use GoFundMe, though. They'll find out we're conservatives and shut it down.
So anyway, I think it is. It's a delicious story for the media in the sense that there's so much mystery around it. That you can't really precisely say what's going on, and because of the obtuse way that either scientists and or military officials speak, being intentionally circumspect about how they express what's going on. So that just adds to the intrigue of it all. And this could have been going on, for all we know, for years, because apparently NORAD didn't have their system dialed in to detect those kinds of objects. So it was like, apparently radar isn't just something where you flip the big breaker switch and it's on or it's off, but you can actually dial that in to detect certain things at certain altitudes made of certain materials and things like that. So they weren't even scanning for balloons.
Our ships and our F-35s have the most amazing radars ever devised by man or beast. But our ground-based stuff that's supposed to protect the continental United States, the youngest of it, the newest of it, debuted in the 1980s. We haven't taken continental air defense seriously since the Cold War ended. And I think that's got to change.
Last thing on this topic before we go back to our members only. You were talking about Air Force and official government language. When I did my series on the Cold War, which is coming out on video with Daily Wire, we did it as an audio podcast, but we shot the video segments coming out. My favorite chapter by far was called Cloaks and Daggers, and it was about espionage during the Cold War. And the heart of that story is the most amazing, certainly one of the 3 most amazing true stories I've ever heard. And it was, I won't get into the details, but basically a Soviet missile sub sank in the middle of the Pacific, 16,000 feet down. And we were able to determine where it was, and the Russians weren't able. So we decided we were going to build a ship and raise this thing up off the bottom of the floor, 16,000 feet down. They had to construct a special ship. It was a Glomar Explorer.
Howard Hughes,
and
right?
They got Howard Hughes to say that it was his project, that he was scooping magnesium nodules off the floor of the ocean.
Of course he is.
And they got Hughes to cooperate because the press thought, well, only person nutty enough to do this is Howard Hughes, right?
Yeah.
So they conducted this top secret operation, not only in full daylight, but in front of press cameras, right?
Yeah.
Here's like hundreds of cameras watching the Glomar Explorer sailing out to scoop magnesium modules off the floor of the Pacific when it's not doing anything like that.
And what a great way to keep a secret, by doing it completely publicly.
That's exactly right. And as a matter of fact, when the Glomar Explorer was on station over the sub, I want to say it was K-127, when it was on station over the sub, it was lowering this giant claw down to pick this thing up. There's a couple of Soviet boats that were trailing, little, like fishing boats essentially, trailing the Explorer. And these Soviet Navy guys are radioing back. Like, the ship's just standing here. It's not far from where we think we lost the sub. Don't be ridiculous. It's Howard Hughes. This is what the Soviet naval authorities came back, right? So anyway, the reason I bring this up is because that particular operation generated something that's called the Glomar response. And you've undoubtedly heard it before. But something to the effect of, this guy was asked by Congress, and I don't know the details of the story, but the gist of it is correct. So somebody's like asking this guy, a CIA guy, he says, was the Glomar Explorer a CIA operation? And the guy gave the Glomar response, which is, I can neither confirm nor deny that is in fact the case. I can neither confirm nor deny that is in fact what the Explorer was. And I thought, that's just perfect language.
The vodka pundit response is, I'm too drunk to remember.
That's much better. Did you commit perjury? No.
Too drunk to
remember. But it was a thing. I said I cannot confirm nor deny that this was one of our babies. What an amazing story that is.
I can neither commit nor not commit perjury.
That's right. That's right. You got to use that on every single congressional hearing.
That's right.
Are you aware of the fact that there are 16,000 illegal aliens coming through the border every hour? I can neither confirm nor deny that I'm aware of that information.
Reminds me of Martin Short's character doing those interviews.
Nathan Thurm.
Nathan Thurm. I know that. Yeah. What? Why did you
think I know that?
Of course I know that.
Is it
You're
me?
the one who doesn't know that.
Okay, so this is the end of the balloons.
Yes.
More to come, no doubt, because my guess is if this is some program of the Chinese or the Russians or the Chino-Russians or whatever, they've already launched some balloons in the intervening time before we started shooting them down. So there may be balloons that were already on the way that we don't even know about.
We better get some money going because we are falling behind in this balloon gap.
That's right.
Who had Nana proven right on their 2023 bingo card?
America's strategic latex reserves have gone woefully short.
Oh, I'm long on Mylar.
Oh, God.
All right, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Now
At least ours say greeting from America on them. You know, the freaking commies.
That's right.
Inhospitable bastards.
If they had flown low over like the southern United States, they'd be riddled with holes.
Yeah. If people just knew where it was,
that's right.
We'd figure out a way. We just amateur rocket guys would figure it out, you know?
Yeah, they'd be full of Estes rocket holes.
That's right. 17 stager with an explosive shotgun shell at the top. It probably worked perfectly.
I saw a two-panel meme the other day. The first panel was R2-D2 and C-3PO, and 3PO saying, "R2, I think we're in Tennessee," and the second panel was in a very similar pose as C-3PO and R2-D2, a copper and silver still that they've been converted into.
Well, and let me just put this this proviso at the end. In the off chance that this is actually something horribly serious, this video will disappear from the internet and there'll be no evidence that it has ever appeared.
We will neither confirm nor deny that this video ever appeared on YouTube.
We need to get one of those little Men in Black things.
After every segment.
Exactly. And that's the end of this segment, I think. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching Right Angle. And for Steve and Bill, I'm Scott. We'll see you next time.